Hello, friends, one and all, whether you're listening or watching this. My name is Mariah, and this is the first episode of my podcast, Mother's Mysteries. That's a working title. It may change as anything will, especially with me. I love to change. But the purpose of my podcast is to introduce to you the narrative that will set you free if you let her. And with this episode, I just want to offer a little bit more of an introduction as to what I mean by that, who is her, and what your role is with her, whether you know it or not. I want to introduce you to those things, and then as I get going with this podcast, flush out different subjects, different aspects to this, and I would love feedback of what you would like to know more after we go through this little introductory journey together. So that's a pretty big claim, a narrative that will set you free, but it's set me free entirely in a way that I never knew was possible with life, to live so fully as an active player with the reality that I live within and on. And I'm not somebody who holds those cards close. I would love to share that. And if I can help anybody feel a fraction of what I feel when this story is fully understood, then, I have to share it. So, what I'm offering, and I'm not the first to offer it by any means, but it is something that I don't see, especially people my age, talk about. And it's not, I don't see it enough. And I would love to see it as much as I see, the new age stuff. And what this is, in the most probably relatable terms that most people have heard of, is Gnosticism. So Gnosticism is not a religion, and this little tagline is from John Lamlash, and I'm sure I'm going to talk about him a lot. Just to introduce him a little bit, he's a Gnostic scholar, and he has done so much with bringing the narrative back to light to people, and we have him to thank for bringing that back to the modern day in his work. And he says that Gnosticism is not a religion. It's an alternative to all religions. And just, I like him so much because he puts words to feelings that I already have. And I feel like I'm always like talking about him or quoting him, but it's just, he's lived a lot longer than I have. And he's had time to piece together the things that, haven't been pieced together for me, but he puts words to it and I'm like, aha, that's it. Gnosticism is the alternative to all religions. It is not a religion. And the reason why it's an alternative, it's because it's the true story of humans from way before I am here sitting in this chair, before humans were even upon the earth. It goes way back, and it's a full, consistent story from beginning, and it hasn't ended because we're in it. And the story actually becomes interactive when you learn it. And that is the most beautiful thing I can think of to be introduced to your creator in a way that has a coherent storyline and involves you creating. And I don't want to say there's an end, but if there is going to be an end, you get to create it with this. And it's like becoming an active player in the myth, which is really cool. And first, I want to say that I grew up with Christianity, and I went to a Christian school for a while. And I didn't stick with that school. I didn't end up going to Christian high school because I was kind of fed up with it. And I'm always somebody who's been very internal. My internal life is very rich. It always has been. And I've always talked to God. That's just been my thing. I've always prayed. I've always done, it's just kind of something that's been really natural for me. But you learn that from praying to Sky Daddy. But it's something I never stopped. But with Christianity and with Sky Daddy, I found like I was on a phone call and there was nobody on the other line. It was just like beep, 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 beep. Nobody's listening. You're just talking. And then when I found this narrative, and I'll describe my own personal experience a little bit after I describe who is she, it was finally like somebody was on the other line talking back to me and offering me support, offering me insight, in a way that I would want God to do, in a way that's interactive and relevant in my real life. So let's get into that a little bit, because I'm aware of a lot of people who have left Christianity, especially women, who don't go back to any sort of belief system. And many women do, and they find spirituality in the universe and source and whatever. It's still kind of abstract though. And I think that this is the perfect answer for anybody who has left a religion because it hasn't felt fulfilling. It hasn't felt like anybody's on the other line of that phone and you're calling all day. This kind of relationship becomes very natural when you're like, oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. So who is she? She that I'm referring to, she is our mother, and who historically is always seen as our mother, Mother Nature. So this is the she that is the most immediate to us and the story here. She is our earth who sustains us. She is Gaia. And Gaia is a pretty normal term, especially in the New Age community these days, of working with Gaia and having a relationship with Gaia. And I think that's an amazing thing because, in my opinion, that's the first step to finding out more about who Gaia is, where we are, and what our relationship is to her and her history. Because we live not even on her, we live in her. We are so deep in her atmosphere. That is like her skin, and we are inside it. And it's just the more that you get familiar with the story, the more that you will have intuitions, visions, these kinds of things where you'll be like, oh, that just makes sense. So Gaia wasn't always Gaia. And this was the revelation for me that I needed. I love Gaia, of course, but I found out more about her. So before Gaia was Gaia, and you can kind of think of this as like Gaia's higher self in a sense. She was Sophia. And I love Sophia so much. It's just so amazing to have a relationship with her. And that's what this story offers, is that you get to have a real relationship with the characters that you learn about because they are real. So before Gaia was Earth that we live upon, she was Sophia. And who Sophia is, and this is all from Gnostic texts. Who Sophia is an aeon. That's what the Gnostics have termed her, which is like a cosmic goddess is probably the best way to put it. She's like the scale you cannot imagine. Like it's way bigger, way bigger than anything our brain can like wrap our head around. But she was an aeon, and these aeons literally live in the galactic core of our Milky Way galaxy, which is in Sagittarius, something like that. Sagittarius is related to it, and I think that's where our galactic core is. And so the aeons are real beings, and they're kind of like torrents of energy, and I want to get more into the specifics of the aeons and who they are, what they do, things like that. But I want to do that in a different podcast. So she is an aeon in the galactic center. So before she was Gaia, Sophia, being an aeonic goddess, has her male counterpart called Thelete. So Sophia and Thelete, these are the most important aeons to our story. They are technically our parents, our divine cosmic parents, the ones who created us humans in the way that we are and how perfect we are. They created us. So, and that's normal for aeons. So what aeons do is that they make creations. They literally spend time in the galactic center just tinkering like scientists, making creations and sending them out into the spinning arms of the galaxy. And then that little seed, or I guess it would be a seed, like a seed of information that they have made with an intention in mind, goes out, finds the right place to live, and then evolves. And they don't get involved. It's like a science experiment. Basically, they're scientists. That's probably the best way to think about it. And they're not just scientists. Like they're kind of scientist artists type beings. And so Sophia, in her amazing genius and rapturous outrageousness, she had a dream of this creation that she wanted to make. And the aeons, the rule is that they do this together. They have the female and the male, and they make a creation in ecstatic bliss together. And then it gets sent off into the arms and becomes alive in whatever place it lands. So aeons being aeons, this is what they do. And Sophia was imagining what we as humans would be like the best version of us. And in her imagination, she became so in love with the things that humans could do, because she's a torrent of energy. She doesn't so much have this. She's not an experiencing human in a material form. Like it's different. And she imagined us being able to physically experience things such as love and playfulness and bliss and ecstasy and any kind of emotion. And she saw it, and she saw us like basically frolicking in a field, having so much fun. And she was so in love with her creation, and she was imagining this on her own. She was so in love with her creation that she fell from the aeonic core, the galactic core where she resided. She fell from there while she was imagining it in kind of like a lucid dream state. She literally fell, a part of her fell through the galactic core out into the galaxy, and she materialized to become the Earth. So when she materialized to become the Earth, before she actually materialized, she was thinking that, a 3-body system would be good for us. And so she materialized as the Earth, as her main body. And then a a part of her also materialized as the sun, and another part of her materialized as the moon. So that is the 3-part body of Sophia that we can interact with on a daily basis: the sun, the moon, and the earth. And specifically, the earth is her body that we live on. And she is called Gaia here instead of Sophia. And when she fell, something else that happened is because she didn't do this with her male counterpart, Thelete. And this is something I'm going to get into like in an episode specifically, because it's a very important topic. When she fell, there were some unintended consequences because she didn't do it with her partner. She just fell so in love and just like got really wrapped in. And the unintended consequences that she accidentally created the archons. Whoops, they suck. They really suck. So just a quick little overview. The head archon, leader archon, is Sky Daddy. The Old Testament God, the jealous God, the Hebrew God, that is the first and head mistake that she made when she fell, because when she fell, she was scared, and so it also created this thing that was the opposite of her. And when he was created, and you can read this in the Nag Hammadi Codices, like this is, I don't know if I mentioned that, sorry. So a lot of the Gnostic, pretty much everything from the Gnostic stuff other than the oral tradition comes from the Nag Hammadi Codices today. And I will get more into that in another episode too, but they're basically books that weren't included in the Bible. And they're on like these scrolls and stuff and written in Greek and other languages, but they are not the Hebrew Old Testament. Like it's all the story of Sophia and real creation and stuff like that. So anyways, you can read this in the Nag Hammadi that the mistake that she made was like an aborted fetus, and that's literally what it says. And it became alive, and it said that there is nothing before me. I am the all-powerful, blah blah blah. And as soon as it said that, Sophia popped up in one of her forms and was like, hey, that's not true. Like, you came from me, you came from my body. And then he was like, no. And then he created his own system, which is actually the rest of our solar system, which is why they don't have any life. That's the archons, and that is the Old Testament jealous God. And why, when you try to talk to that guy, he doesn't pick up the phone because he sucks. I will get more into that. And if you have any questions specifically about that, definitely let me know, because the archons are still alive and kicking today. The archons are the globalists. They are the ones who are basically all the really guys that are, and women that have denied their soul and are enemies of human life and would prefer if humans just died, because they would rather us be robots so that they can control them. Like they are very real and prevalent today, but fortunately, because of where they come from, they are not the same as humans. They don't have the same abilities as we do, and we have the same abilities as Sophia. So that's the archons. And they were created when Sophia fell, and they kind of trapped her into their system. But Sophia, in her genius, amazingness, I love her so much. And you can read this in the Nag Hammadi too. She said so many times, she's like, I am inside of all of them. I am them, and I show up in them. And I'm like, hey, can't be doing this anymore. There's going to be a time when all of your stuff falls down, and I will be there, and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that we humans are here, and we think that everything's taking forever. But I can't remember the exact math, but it's something like one second or minute or something like that, something crazy for us. No, 1 second or minute in the aeonic core is like 108 days here. Some kind of thing like that, where the time is really short where Sophia is and what she's doing. But the way it translates here in her experiment, we experience it to be much longer in time. So I have some notes here. I just want to make sure I get this in order. So, like I said, she was dreaming when she did this. She was having like a daydream imagination situation. And because of the force that is her, she just created the exact place that humans needed to live and thrive: the sun, the earth, and the moon. And she literally fell in love with us so much that she became the body for us to live on. And I just think that that's such a beautiful thing. But she's still in her dream. So this is something that's really important to remember. And I think, well, I know, like, it is why we feel like we're living in a hologram. Because she is light, and everything is a light projection from her and this reality that we live in. So it's holographic. Like, and that's why everything's so crazy. Like, humans can manifest and it's just like, boom, something appears and it wasn't there. And physics says we live in a hologram too. So we are in her holographic dream, kind of. It's like we're made of her dream stuff. And when you're in a dream and you're in an a lucid dream in the astral realm, and if you want something to happen, it's like you can just kind of think of it when you're in your dream and you turn around and it's there. It's like we are inside of Sophia's version of that. And that's why life is so magical. But what's even cooler and more magical is that she's lucidly waking up and has woken up in this dream that we are existing in. So it's like layers of delight for me. Like, I love dreams. I love goddesses. I love, like, it's so perfect. So John Lamb Lash has pinpointed that she started to become lucid in the 1700s, like midway 1700s. And so for that, I don't even know what the time would be like for her. Maybe like a week or something like that. Who knows? Of her time translated to our time. So what that means is that she's awakening in her own dream, which is our reality, and she's approaching individuals for this consummation of the age that you can read in the Nag Hammadi. And the consummation of the age is the end of the archons, because she knew that it was her mistake. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the aeons and the story that we get from Sophia and Gnosticism and the mystics that interpreted that story for us. Because the Gnostics, and I want to do an episode on them too, they were the mystery school teachers. So they like knew all of that stuff, all of mystery stuff. And they were very private, and they liked to remain anonymous until they found that, Sophia needs us to work with her. So that's the point of Sophia waking up in her lucid dream and approaching individuals. And she's approaching people to learn and share her mysteries. And that's why I want to just keep talking about her, and so that people can have their own experience of this and their own share of that mystery. And I know, from firsthand experience, and I'll go in more detail in a little bit about my experience. But people have told me that like recently they just had this new spirit guide and her name is Sophia. I like to say Sophia because of phi in the middle, which is the golden ratio. So she is our golden. That's why everything is just so perfect, because it's all nature. It's all Sophia. But a lot of people have told me that Sophia has just become a spirit guide for them now. Like I'll talk about her on Twitter or something and they're like, oh, that's interesting. My spirit guide's name is Sophia. And I'm like, that makes sense to me, because she is like not feeling you out in a sense, but like slowly approaching to be like, hey, so like, you remember me? Like, we're friends. We go way back. Like, I love you more than like anything else could ever love you, because you are mine. And then that relationship develops into, oh, like you're kind of pushing me in a certain direction, and you know what, that's the direction that I've been wanting to go in my entire life, and I've never figured it out till now. So that's a real experience that people are having just from knowing Sophia. And they might even not know anything about Gnosticism, about this story, fallen goddess scenario, anything like that. And Sophia is still contacting them and working with them. And if it's not Sophia, then it's Gaia. And it's just so beautiful, because it's happening no matter what, right? Like, it doesn't matter what anybody does. If you have an astral or meditative dream experience with Sophia, nobody can take that away from you. Like that is just amazing that she can, well, obviously she can, but it's just amazing that she does these things and that we get to be a part of that. And her name means wisdom. She is the wisdom goddess, the originator, our creatrix. And the Greeks knew it. And they have their own Sophia. There is a city in Bulgaria, I think the capital is called Sophia, and there's a statue of her there. The Catholics, I think, have Saint Sophia, I believe. And the Templars, worship is not a good word, but they knew and they venerated Sophia and the divine feminine as well. And everybody thinks they worshipped Baphomet, which is like some crazy, stupid creation. But Baphomet is Sophia. Baphomet is just, is a cipher for her name, number one. Number two, it was the way for the Templars to get the Catholic Church off their back for what they were actually doing, because what they were actually doing is a real powerful thing to do. And that's working with our Earth Mother where we are. And when we work with our Earth Mother, we get to that like direct access to Sophia, and it's amazing. And you can physically see her. Like, I have experiences in meditations and dreams because I don't know, I'm really good at visualizing internally. But some people, especially on psychedelics, you can like literally see her, and how she shows up is a white light, like a woman's body in white light. And she's, there's many specific things, and John Lamb Lash talks about it a lot, but she's an organic light, and it's kind of cold, and she's like, it's like porous, kind of like sea foam. Like she's kind of like sea foam, but it's light and organic. And that's the real version of her that you can interact with. And she's on all the dimensions that we are, and we are on many different dimensions. And, they're all her dimensions in her dream. So of course she's going to be there. And knowing that, that she is inside of everything, everyone, and she is this white light spectacle that we get to interact with. And not only that loves us. Like, she's like obsessed with us. Well, she created us. It's like if you were, I had this visual the other day. It's like if I was playing The Sims Yes, I play The Sims. If I was playing The Sims and I created like this perfect world full of the Sims that I love, and I'm just like so obsessed with them and I want them to be happy and successful and everything like that. And then it's like if I got to jump into the game and interact with them. And that's kind of what's going on here. But this secret, I guess, that she exists and is a white light, and is just the beautiful body, like of a woman. She's the Holy Grail. That's the chalice that so many, especially the Templars, I think they did that, were tasked with keeping not secret, but nobody said anything because when the Templars, no, sorry, it wasn't the Templars. I think this is in Parsifal, or there's some Holy Grail story where a group of people, I don't know if it was the Gnostics, Templars, whatever, I'm getting my stories all mixed up, but a group of people saw Sophia. She revealed herself, and they all agreed that there are no words for this kind of beauty and existence that we get to interact with, that they didn't say anything about it because words would not do it justice. And that is the Holy Grail. And I'm going to get another episode about the Holy Grail too. There's so much stuff that I can talk about. But the knowledge of knowing that she is the Holy Grail and that she is the landscape where we are, she is the life force that comes through us and gives us life, that knowledge is like a master key of life. Like, it unlocks every single door for you. It is finally a narrative, a meta narrative, that you have a beginning and you have a middle and you don't have an end, because we are still living it and playing it out with her. And I just think that that is the most beautiful, sorry, I'm gonna get a drink, the most beautiful, amazing story that I've ever heard of. And okay, I'm gonna talk about my experience now because it's pretty cool. So, my experience with Sophia. And I want to share this because I would love if everybody could have their own experience, but I want you to know what it's like, and that you probably have already had your own experience and you don't know it. So my personal experience with Sophia started with Gaia. And what happened was that I was a part of some meditation where she was like a mentor briefly, took me into Gaia's cave for the first time in meditation. And when I went there, I was like, I belong here. This is my home. And the meditation, she took me into the core of the earth where Gaia's cave is. And I was like, I know this place, come on. And it just felt so natural and so nourishing to me, that I continued to go there pretty much every day for a year after that. In the morning, I would wake up 15, 20 minutes and I would meditate, and I would go with my awareness down through the dirt, through the rocks, through the lakes that are underneath here, through everything, into the core of the earth where Gaia's center is. And she is there as a real being that you can interact with. She comes up to you. I had conversations with her. I was like meeting a friend, for a quick coffee every morning before I started my day. And I take people there now if that's something that you're interested in and you want to start this process for you and you felt like it hasn't started yet. I do shamanic journeying and I take you there. I take you right there, and I haven't had anybody tell me that they don't see what's going on, except for one time when the guy that I was doing it with just fell asleep the whole time. It was like as soon as I started to take him down, he was like, and then as soon as I started to bring him back up, he was like, he started to come to. It was really funny. But those are like these kinds of shamanic journeys and stuff like that. Your conscious awareness is not necessary. I am seeing everything that's going on. I'm seeing who's there, who you're talking to, and I describe it the whole time. And I love doing that for people, because you get to meet Gaia, and she's just like, come give me a hug, come, and then you give her a hug, and you start to feel like her earth body and her love for you. Just it's an amazing meditative experience, and I loved it so much I did it for a year. And so that's how I got really introduced to Gaia, and who she is, how she feels, how much she loves me, how much she cares about me, how much she just like wants us to be BFFs forever. And then after doing that for a while, I kind of stopped doing it every day, because I started to go to other places and I started to branch out a little bit in my meditation, which was cool. And then actually around the same time that I started to consider to remove my IUD, which is important for women because anything there like blocks a lot of your creative flow and your flow in general. And I know that from experience. I started to hear the name Sophia, like Sophia, not Sophia, but Sophia, because Sophia is just more familiar to me. And I started to hear it in my head. And I'll talk about this more some other time as I introduce myself more, but I'm clairaudient. I've always had things going on with my ears, and I hear stuff very well. And so I started to hear her name. And I know that when I start to hear things like that, I'm like, who is she? Like, what does she want? What's going to happen here? And then I started to look into it. And this is what is so lovely about Sophia, is that when it's time for you guys, and you had this agreement long before you came here, when it's time for you guys to get reacquainted in this matrix reality, she's like, hey, I'm here. And actually, you know what? I want to just mention a little bit before I go forward. I want to go back a little bit, because the Gaia cave thing was like me personally getting to know Gaia. But before that, when I had a huge dark night of the soul, and I was like, maybe I'll have to do an episode, I'm not sure, but I had an experience that was very lucid for a while. I was seeing stuff, hearing stuff, and I was not in my home. I was across the country, and I had just left a relationship in Greece that I like literally escaped from. So my head was like, and I remember when that happened, I went to a yoga session with a shamanic channeler, and that was when I first met Gaia, because I felt the presence of her, and it was a very heavy presence to my right, and she sat there. She sat with me during that, which I was crying during the yoga session. I like ruined it for everybody else. And that was when I was like, who is that? Like, who is that? And then later I ended up meeting up with that shaman, and she helped me a lot find some answers. But that was my first experience of Gaia, and she stayed with me over that time. And I remember I was journaling, writing stuff, and I would feel her presence heavy into my right. And it was like, if I could think of a visual for it, it was like a big dirt woman. Like she was like brown, like dirt. And she just sat there, and she was like, and it was just like, somebody is with me, because that was a time where I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my entire life. So that was my first meeting of her, and then getting kind of an introduction to her with that shaman was really cool. But that was a year and a half before I started to go to her cave. So this, like, I didn't piece it together until way after. And that's always what happens with these kinds of things is you have like a realization that you've been doing it this whole time. So anyways, that happened. Gaia cave for a year, and then Sophia's name was in my head, and I wasn't sure why around the time I started to think about getting my IUD out. So the same time that I got my IUD out, my Sophia code book I either ordered it or it came at the same time I took it out, something like that. And I remember having this visualization, and this is something I recommend to people if you want to attune yourself to Sophia, like right now, and you can visualize, well, even if you can't, it's just the intention that matters, but visualizing a blue or white phoenix situation, a bird coming from your third eye and just like whoosh, and that is Sophia's activation. I found that, like, as soon as I did that, I was like in it. And something else you can do if you want to attune yourself to her energy is visualizing white light, because she is the white light. She is the full spectrum of light. So when you envision that in your reality, it's like preparing a place for her that her frequency can access. Not that she can't access anything, but it's like, come here, please. I've made this house for you and it's your vibration kind of situation. So then after that, I read the Sophia Code, and I really recommend that if you want to get in touch with Sophia, if you want to go on this journey of divine feminine. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, you can read this book and it's amazing. It is like, she calls it a living transmission, the author, and it really is. It's like meditations basically, and you go through with different aspects of the divine feminine, and it's incredible. It's really good. And it helped me so much to learn more about Sophia. But honestly, you learn more about her representations of through Isis and Mary Magdalene and stuff like that. It's really cool, the book. But as soon as I read that, I remember reading it and reading in the introduction where there's a little bit more of Sophia, and I just felt like I was in her lap. Like I was like reading my book, and I could just feel like there was this presence where I was literally just like sitting on her lap, like reading the book, boop, 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 boop. And it felt so lovely that I was like, wow, this just feels so nice. And again, that's how Sophia introduces herself. At first it's like hey, I'm sitting here and I love you and I'm waiting for you and I hope that you see me soon. I hope that you witness me. And then she sends you like little tiny itty bitty nudges. And if you pick them up, the nudges become bigger and bigger and bigger. And this was earlier in the year, like around February, I think, that I read this. And as I became more attuned to her, she showed up more in my meditations and my dreams. And specifically, I had this one dream I will never forget. It was so cool. And I've had dreams in this like astral room, or I don't know if it's in my right brain, but there's a place that's like pink, and it feels like you're like close to orgasm in there. And it's where there's a lot of really cool beings. Ram Dass was there once in my dream, but this was kind of like that, but like private. And it was me and Sophia. And Sophia was like this like light gas energy in the shape of a woman who was just like smiling at me the whole time. She's like, and like just so happy. And I remember in the dream, the experience is what it was, that we were laughing so hard with each other and like literally rolling around like babies, like just rolling and just like, and is just like, that is her energy, is that fun, bliss, outrageous, crazy, amazing feeling. And she's so smart. Like, she's like a scientist, and she actually is the reason for the Mandela effect. Like, that's her time corrections. That's something else I'll get into. John Lamb Lash has done a lot of that, and he's probably who I'll call on for information, because he's done a lot of digging with that stuff. But she, like, just who she is and the feeling of her is so incredible, and it's so much more fun than I thought it would be. And I encourage you to talk to her and to start to, like, put out the feelers. And if you want to, thinking of Sophia, and then if you can, go up and to the right with your thoughts, and like, just, you can, I mean, sounds weird, but if you do it on your own, you're like, oh, okay, thoughts going there. And the more that you do that, you can kind of create like an open vortex there, and intend that that's where Sophia comes in, maybe a white color, or gold. And she will come. Like, this is why she's lucid in her dream now. Like, she's doing this because she needs and wants and desires to work with her creation that she loves so much, to move us forward in the direction that she originally intended, without the mistake that she did not intend, without the archons. And that's what's happening right now. And that's why our world is in such a state of, like, craziness. It's because the archons know their time is up, and they are trying so hard to change people's bodies. Number one, because our bodies are the creation of Sophia and Thelete. We are perfect exactly as we are. We don't need anything put in our body. We honestly don't need anything outside of ourselves. We can create just by thinking and observing the reality that we want. But we grew up with that archontic influence everywhere. And the reason why the archons got so much power is because of humans working with them. So Sophia is back to correct her mistake, but she's not correcting the mistake of the humans who decided to work with the archons. They're not in her story. She's like, you decided that, that's your problem. But for people who, just want to live as a fully enveloped, endowed human that has all of our resources available to us, and all of our capacities as humans, without the chemtrails, without the chemicals in our food, without, they attack us from all angles. That is on the way out. And the reason why it feels like it's taking so long is because time is different in the galactic core. And if you have questions for her, she'll answer you. This is the best thing about Sophia. Is that somebody's on the other line. She's like, hey, I've been talking to you this whole time. Thanks for talking back. It's like, us, we're on her other line, and we're not picking up the phone. And we just have to go, hey girl, I'm ready. And she'll be like, great, I have an amazing plan for you that you're gonna love, because I know you inside and out. And really, it's her life that we're living. And it sounds weird, and it's kind of an ego hit at first to be like, it's not actually your life. But once you absorb that, and you're like, okay, so I am a fractal dream expression of her. So she chose to have the experience through my eyes, and she knows me inside and out. So what is her plan for my life? And the plan that she has will always be one that's like, oh, well, I'm already equipped to do that. I already know how to do that. That's my passion. That's my blah, blah, blah. Because she's like, yeah, that's the point, is you're supposed to do the things that she would love for you to do, because it's the same thing that you love to do. It is your heart. It is your soul. She is that. And when we can bring those together, And John Lamlash put it really well. He said, marrying your life force with the source of your life. And that is just beautiful, because it takes this whole narrative of Sophia dreaming and then falling to becoming Gaia, to waking up in her lucid dream as Sophia, to us today being like, okay, use me, right? And I mean, we all know that from the Bible of, like, Lord, use me, blah, blah, blah. It's like, and then what? Did that work for you? I don't know. It never worked for me. And maybe it's just different for everybody else. But this narrative, this story becomes alive when you are attuned to it, and when you're in resonance with it. And in the Nag Hammadi too, Sophia says a lot of that's like, I'll call you if you're my own. If you hear me, you're mine. And let's do this together. If you don't hear me, you're not supposed to. Like, see ya. But anybody who has that desire to hear her, to hear what she wants to do, and how you can be an active player in her grand scheme of everything. And she's like so smart. She's this body that we live in. At the same time, she's taking care of us by coming to us. Like, I'm going to listen to her. I've been listening to her so far, and it has been the most liberating time of my life. And it is just such an amazing thing. But I think that's where I'm going to end my introduction of Sophia, Gaia, my own experience, and how that relates to your life. Is that once you're familiar with this story, and just from listening to this podcast, you already are, it unfolds for you in your time. Like, you get to access your version of this story that starts to piece together everything for you. And you come to realization after realization after realization. And you're like, holy cow. Like, I had no idea it was as deep. There was so much creativity, so much beauty, so much truth, so much love to a consistent storyline. And the only storyline that is not in anything else other than the Nag Hammadi Codices and Gnosticism. And it's because it is the core of the mysteries, is to know that we are inside Gaia, and Sophia shows up for you, and she is our Aeonic creator. And knowing that, and knowing how to work with that, is the core of the mysteries, and the Gnostics were the mystery school teachers. So that is my introduction. If you have questions about that, definitely let me know. I would love to gear some podcasts around questions that people have, because this is all just, my own journey that I want to share. Because she's like, girl, you gotta start sharing this stuff. I'm like, okay, Sophia, I hear you. And how I want to end this actually is I want to read a little bit from the Nag Hammadi Codices, and you can find them all online. You can just Google Nag Hammadi Codices PDF, and it comes up, and you can find everything. And the thing about the codices is they were found in 1945 in Lower Egypt, I believe, by a farming family, and they just found them in these like old canisters, and they pulled them out, and they were just these really old scrolls, and they actually used some of it for kindling for fire. So, but it's not 100% put together. Like, they're kind of like scraps of stuff, but there's so much that actually came through. So what I'm going to read is just a little piece from the book called Trimorphic Protonoia. Amazing. Like, I just love the sound of that. That is a really good one for an introduction of what is in the Nag Hammadi, and Sophia's voice in it. And you can find her, like, she's got a number of them, but it also has, the stuff about Mary Magdalene, different gospels that weren't included in the Bible. Like, it's really cool stuff, and it's amazing that it's just all online for us to find. So This is from the voice of Sophia. Like, this is her speaking. So now, O sons of the thought, listen to me, to the speech of the mother of your mercy. For you have become worthy of the mystery hidden from the aeons, so that you might receive it. And the consummation of this particular aeon, and of the evil life has approached, and there dawns the beginning of the aeon to come, which has no change forever. I am androgynous, I am mother, and I am father, since I copulate with myself. I copulated with myself and with those who love me, and it is through me alone that the all stands firm. I am the womb that gives shape to the all by giving birth to the light that shines in splendor. I am the aeon to come. I am the fulfillment of the all, that is the myrothea, the glory of the mother. I cast voice speech into the ears of those who know me. Oh, I love that line. And I am inviting you into the exalted, perfect light. Moreover, as for this light, when you enter it, you will be glorified by those who give glory, and you will be enthroned by those who enthrone you. You will accept robes from those who give robes, and the baptizers will baptize you, and you will become gloriously glorious, the way you first were when you were light. And I hid myself in everyone, and I revealed myself within them. And every mind seeking me longed for me, for it is I who gave shape to the all when it had no form. And I transformed their forms into other forms, until the time when a form will be given to the all. It is through me that the voice originated. It is I who put the breath within my own, and I cast into them the eternally Holy Spirit, and I ascended and entered my light. I went up upon my branch and sat there among the sons of the holy light, and I withdrew to their dwelling place, which became glorious. Amen. And that's just one little part of it. I really like the trimorphic proteinuria. That's and what it refers to is the threefold body of Sophia: the earth, the moon, and the sun. And that's why the Trinity is so important. So that's where I'm going to end it. This is an hour. That's a good amount of time. I hope you enjoyed. I love you all so very, very much. And I look forward to doing another episode of Mother's Mysteries with you. Mwah. I'll talk to you later. Bye.